Guild Wars 2 is a 5-year-old game, and for all the changes that's happened to the game over those years, this trailer that was released a little bit before launch still represents, in my mind, the most important aspects of what makes Guild Wars 2 Guild Wars 2. Yes, the developers are passionate about the game they're making. Yes, they're passionate about the players, but above all, what the developers are passionate about is the beauty that their world shows, and that's remained consistent throughout the entire 5-year term of Guild Wars 2 to date, and something that I'm sure they're going to continue well into the future. This video, however, aims to deal with the aspects of Guild Wars 2 that have changed. Now, there have of course been some negative changes, but a lot of these changes have been for the good, and Guild Wars 2 as a community know about these changes, but people who might have tried the game at launch haven't seen how the game has evolved, and this video is to help those people understand. Because I myself was one of those people. I left the game about a year after launch because I was unhappy with the end game. I didn't have things to do. I didn't have activities that I liked doing in the game, so I left it, and that was the right thing to do. But you know, a bit before Heart of Thorns, I came back to the game, and I've been playing it consistently for a few years now, and it's been the best MMO experience I've ever had, and I'm more excited about this expansion that's coming to Guild Wars 2 than any other expansion that's released in my MMO history. And because of that, I feel like I need to share these changes with people. But before we can really get into meaningful discussion, I think you need to understand who I am. You need to understand my perspective on what makes a good MMO, because if you don't know that, you're not really going to care what I'm saying. You might just, dismiss it. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to actually listen to what I'm saying and understand how this has impacted me as a player and how it might impact you. So before we can really start to talk about this, I think we need to get to know each other a bit better. My name's Chris, but a lot of people on this channel and in-game call me Seesaw. And I love MMOs. I started playing with MapleStory back when I was like 10 years old, but I've played World of Warcraft, I've played Terra, I've played Neverwinter, I've played obviously Guild Wars 2 since beta, WildStar. There's a lot of games that I've played, and while playing it, I've really grown to enjoy sharing it with people, and that's why I've kind of been doing YouTube for the last 4 years and sharing my experiences in these games. But what I'm most passionate about when I actually play video games is playing it with my friends. I have 3 other guys that I like to play with, so 4 of us in total, and we like to do casual group content that challenges the 4 of us. And we've bumped around from game to game looking for the perfect thing to fit that niche, where we have group content when we want it, but also solo content for when we can only go on by ourselves, after work, in the evening, something like that. And throughout time, Guild Wars 2 has really evolved into the perfect game that combines both single player and multiplayer, where we have, single player stuff such as traditional exploration or achievement hunting, farming, yada yada yada, but even more in-depth single player gameplay where you're actually going for these legendary weapons that take, for me, a year to do casually, and which is crazy to think about, but it's broken down into such nice steps now that it didn't have at the start of the game. For instance, there's collections for the precursors that take you back to different jumping puzzles, different parts of the world that you've maybe never explored in your entire life, and now there's a purpose to do those, and you get rewarded your precursor, and then you take that and you start making the actual legendary weapon, which can take a while, and then once you have the legendary weapon, it's such an accomplishment that I've never felt in a game before. It's an achievement built on a ton of achievements with a badass weapon to boot. It's just a lot of fun, and I think it's one of the most unique single player experiences that this game can offer. And specifically now that they've really gotten into their groove in terms of adding some of these new legendaries every couple months, it's been very interesting to think, hey, what weapon do I want to make next, or am I going to wait to see what the new dagger looks like before I go ahead and make this old legendary dagger? It's a very fun part of the game for me right now, and it's definitely a very fun thing that you can do by yourself. Now, in terms of groups, the game's just becomes so much better. Obviously, the actual endgame content has developed a lot. We used to have dungeons, which were a lot of fun, and I'm not dissing anyone who liked dungeons, but they were limited in different ways, where you'd just keep on running them and you'd have, kind of the same exact playthrough each time, and not really like there wasn't many new dungeons coming to the game, and that was kind of very disheartening for people who were used to traditional MMOs where, hey, this next patch is going to introduce this new dungeon. It got dull. And then we had fractals, which were a great step, and they've become much better throughout the years too. There was a big revamp in the Heart of Thorns expansion that really made fractals into a whole new thing. And throughout a bunch of different iterations, I think we're at a point where they feel like a daily dungeon kind of system where you make some good money from it, you have a lot of fun, and it's not such a time sink that, you can't do it after work or anything like that. It's the perfect combination. It's the 5-player group content that just feels great. And then on top of that, they've added these challenge modes that make some of the higher end new fractals like mini raids, and that's where the real competitiveness comes out, and you see people doing different timed runs, different strategies. It's a really great dungeon experience inside of Guild Wars 2. But for me, the ultimate testament to how the game has developed is raids. And these were something that were very controversial when they came to the game, but they show off how the game plays together, how the new elite specs work well with each other, and how new mechanics can make the game so much more interesting in ways that I haven't seen in Guild Wars 2 to date. For instance, we have, I think, 4 different raid wings now, and hopefully more coming soon. And within each of those raid wings, we have about 3 to 4 bosses, and each boss feels extremely unique from one another at this point. Obviously, some of them share some mechanical similarities, but I think most of them have been quite unique. And from what we've seen in the Path of Fire expansion demo weekends, they have new mechanics that we haven't seen before that could very easily be added to different bosses that are completely different. So at this point, you have so many different raids and things to choose from at endgame. It's night and day compared to back at launch when it was just this handful of dungeons. Once I had the gear, it was just grinding out the same dungeons. At this point, it's new stuff coming into the game all the time, different challenge modes coming into the game, different achievements to work on. You've got legendary armor if you haven't done that even, which is a whole nother group-focused achievement progress. It's just a lot of fun. So as you can see, the game has changed in a lot of great ways, but for a lot of people, it's not just if it's a great game for them, it's if it's a great game for their small guild or their group of friends. And that's what this video was about at the start. I'm very passionate about playing with my friends. And one of the friends that I play with the most in Guild Wars 2 is named Ryan. You saw his little picture on the screen earlier on in this video. And he even makes a lot of videos on this channel as well. And he wanted to share his opinions on a lot of the reasons why Guild Wars 2 has changed into such a great game as well. And I think it's great for you guys to sort of see the two different aspects of why we enjoy this game now, because a lot of people, it's not just a game for you, it's a game for your community of friends that you play with or for your guild. So in that feeling, I kind of want to just share, what one of my best friends thinks about the game as well, what one of my guildies thinks about the game, because I think that's a very important part of all of this. So I'm just going to share a few excerpts from a discussion we had about, why we think Guild Wars 2 is in such a great place, because he does have some different ideas and some different knowledge as well. He knows a lot more about lore than I do, so I think he may as well be the one to talk about those points.
Hi guys, this is Ryan, or Redemption, I suppose. I'm not sure what at this point I'd be known better as. I've been playing Guild Wars 2 for 5 years now, on and off, which we'll talk a bit about later. But essentially, I spend most of my time in the game actually recently either going for legendary weapons or raiding with my friends and enjoying the story. So we originally left Guild Wars 2 just because we found that there was a lack of endgame that we preferred. Saying that there was nothing to do at the end of the game that's not true, and a lot of people say that. It's just that in vanilla Guild Wars 2, there just wasn't the type of endgame we were looking for, which was mainly stuff like raids, to be 100% honest, because we had come from World of Warcraft, we had come from Rift as well, we played that game, and raiding had always been the thing that we'd love to do together. We'd get together on weekends. I go to university, and still almost every weekend we all log on to TeamSpeak, and I still raid with them, even though I'm really far away. We all still have our raid nights every weekend, and I missed that a lot. But raids just handled lore even perfectly, and game mechanics, and they were scaled right. I remember that Nightwing 4 came out, we grinded for 4 hours on Karen. And like as many of you are probably gonna be like, oh, I got Karen in an hour, I got Karen third try in, like it wasn't, the fun part wasn't necessarily killing him, it was just having that experience of going in, pretty much wiping on 98%, and just going for 4 hours with my friends and then complete strangers on TeamSpeak and figuring it out all on our own because I didn't want to watch videos to figure it out. So it's so much fun to just have that kind of experience. And even though the raids are tough, and for the record they should be tough, the raids shouldn't be super easy, they're definitely accessible and clearable. So I think the raids are in a really good spot right now. Another big reason that we came back was Elite Specs, and with a little bit of that, to be honest, was a little bit of a soft trinity. I, throughout all of my gaming history, have absolutely loved healing. I love that playstyle, so when I saw Druids, I freaked out, especially because I had mained Ranger during the original game, and then I saw not only would I be able to play the class I loved, but it would be getting a healing spec, so a soft trinity coming back was a big incentivizer as well, because even though it's not as hard a trinity and as it would be in other games, it's nice to actually know specifically what your role is other than just 10 people doing damage, because that just doesn't feel right, you know? Lore is one of those things some people are into. Some people just care about the mechanics of the game. Is it fun? They don't really involve themselves in the story. I have involved myself into the story of Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 more than probably any other game. And with POF coming up, it brings so much possibility into what could be coming up. I mean, with Balthazar himself coming into the story, the God of War, I mean, like going to war against the God of War, how does that not just intrigue you? And adding in Palawa Joko, who's probably been the most anticipated Guild Wars 1 villain yet to come in, that's who everyone's been begging for, and bringing him into the mix. How are him and Balthazar going to interact? Are they going to be able to form an uneasy alliance? I kind of doubt it, but I mean, whose side do we take? Do we just try to take on both at once? That's probably what'll happen, but I mean, you never really know, right? Especially with somebody like Palawa Joko. And then Krakatoric, of course, is in the mix, and the story of Guild Wars 2, truthfully, is about the Elder Dragons. That's what Guild Wars 2 will be about. Maybe not the focus of POF, but as excited as people are about Balthazar coming in, which I'm incredibly excited about, we will, I'm sure, have a lot of Krakatoric stuff coming. And from a side that's not necessarily about the lore, this is a really good decision from the devs in a way. If we don't kill Balthazar at the end, if we don't kill Krakatoric at the end of Path of Fire, it might finally be what it takes to make the Elder Dragons feel more epic. I mean, because the whole critique people have had is that it feels like we just knock off a dragon every expansion. But if we spend this expansion fighting to get to him and don't kill him, and then he has his own expansion again where he's even harder to defeat, it might finally be what it needs to actually make the Elder Dragons feel like epic enemies, so we don't feel like we're just knocking them off every expansion, like there's a challenge and a war to get to them. So that's not even grazing the surface of what the lore is in the game, but there's just so much potential with what POF is going to do, let alone all the new lore we're going to be getting and finding out what Balthazar's ultimate plans are.
And there you go. So that's what Ryan had to say about the game so far. And I know this is kind of a bit of a weird video in the sense that, we're kind of doing an interview style video when both myself and Ryan aren't really even that big of people in the Guild Wars 2 community. I just thought it was good because we're both kind of coming from the point of view where we have left the game because we weren't happy, and we've come back because the game has changed. And a lot of people who are playing the game right now, they're likely going to buy the expansion, and that's not a big deal. But the big part of the market that I think this expansion is trying to talk to is the people who used to play Guild Wars 2 or Guild Wars 1. They're invested in the franchise to a certain degree, and they didn't like Guild Wars 2 when it released. And now has it changed enough for those people to be interested again? And from our point of view, it has changed enough. I think it's very much worth your while to go check out the game and explore it. And that's my opinion. You can go through YouTube and watch a bunch of other great videos. Even the link in this description will lead you to a page about the expansion. And on that, there's a big page that has a bunch of videos like this made by other people who enjoy the game about why they think Guild Wars 2 is in a great place. And I fully I fully think you should go check that out. I think it's worth your while. But, you know, this is just a video, and I don't know how the Path of Fire expansion is going to turn out. I don't know how Guild Wars 2 is going to turn out, but I think Guild Wars 2 is arguably in the strongest position they've ever been before, with the ability to put out expansions and the theoretical ability to continue between those expansions with Living Story to just have a continuous content cycle with very specific things shipping along the side, you know, like raids and new fractals and new PvP maps, and then new elite specializations coming into the game every expansion to really build, create diversity amongst all the classes. I think this could be the strongest MMO on the market right now if this works exactly as they plan. So I think it's completely worth your while to check out the game if you haven't. And if you do play the game right now and you want to add to this or sort of explain something that I haven't, you know, do so in the comments below, because I want people to share their opinions about the game. Maybe there's something I've stressed too much, maybe there's something I haven't stressed at all in this video, and I'd love to hear from you guys. So I think I'm going to wrap up the video here. Hopefully you enjoyed it, hopefully you try out the game, and hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.